this virus is the perfect bad storm in that it's infective and it's extremely lethal. The incubation period is 2 to 14 days. On average, it's 5. On day 14, people start feeling better, but there's this thing in the immune system called a cytokine storm where your immune system just goes nuts. It just starts attacking everything.
Right.
So the moment you start feeling better, you could crash. And
Sorry, I didn't have mine. I had mine before, but I figured I'd do a little bit more business casual this time around. I was rocking T-shirts for the first few episodes.
We had to up our game a little bit with someone of your caliber joining us. We're really honored that you took your time out of your busy schedule to come and talk to us a little bit.
Absolutely my pleasure. It's always good to be home with Irish family, and especially in times like this. Trevor, we talked about it, like the one thing you can depend on in a pandemic is the place that helped create and make who you are. I was talking to one of my buddies who happens to be my attorney. I'm like, I don't know what they're doing in the sauce, but they do a good job at picking kids and mix them up because we're really, as tight as we were in college, you find yourself getting even tighter. The people you've never met, all you have to know is that you were there. And there's a certain assumption. I don't know. Maybe it's the parietals. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Our first episode, or actually our second episode, we were talking about how to break parietals. So,
well, the first thing that anyone knows is you buy your RA a case of beer as a freshman, and you're good.
Yeah.
We used to bribe ours with PlayStation. We used to let them win in our NCAA tournaments.
I'm still friends with my RA from freshman year right now. BOG.
Awesome.
Good move.
Awesome.
I got caught up in my roommate and some RA drama, and I was like a secondary casualty of the whole thing. They were fighting over a girl in my sophomore year, and it was like it's not the side you want to be on at all. Yeah, it was not good.
Yeah.
So I learned the hard way that lesson for sure.
Yeah, parietal check at 11:30.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the same guy that was the one that got into the rivalry with him was also caught like climbing up the outside of a girl's dorm at one point. Or no, maybe climbing out of the girl's dorm. It was nothing. I guess it's like in today's day and age, you got to be careful how you're saying that. It was nothing.
Yeah.
It was nothing. It was all kosher in terms of.
It wasn't like Me Too-y.
Yeah. No. It was,
discretion a little bit more so now.
He was allowed there by at least the person whose room he was in, but not by the dorm, not by parietals. And so
wow. Yeah. I tell you, the hardest thing, one of the hardest things in life, especially when you were there, was trying to explain parietals to your buddies that were in college. They were like, wait, what? I'll never forget, one of my good friends, one of my best friends at the time from high school went to the University of Michigan. And of course, we did what we
you're still friends.
Kinda. But what's crazy is he stayed in a co-ed dorm, and when I tell you, I was taking a shower and I walked out, I slipped and I almost fell. I'm like, whoa, wait, stop. She was like, good morning. I'm like, whoa.
Yeah, a little different.
Didn't know how to handle it.
Seriously, it's like a whole other world.
Yeah.
That's too funny.
Well, let's stay over there let's talk some Notre Dame while we're talking about it. You were part of the last championship team. Is that
Well, no. So interestingly, I was there during the last championship. I was asked to walk on after that year. I was a basketball player, and they saw me playing in bookstore. Saw me playing bookstore. They asked me to try out, and I didn't know any better. I went and I ended up making the team. I was on for a short period of time during the 89-90 season.
Okay.
Had issues at home with mom, family, whatever. Being a walk-on, I had to get jobs. I got 3 jobs. Dorm food sales. I was a bad guy delivering stuff for student affairs.
Oh, wow.
And then I did this, what do you call it? The donor fund, whatever that fund was, asking people to donate money.
Oh, man.
Did that, but I kept the relationship through the years. Like once They always told me Griggs is once in the locker room, always in the locker room. And all of us have stayed tight throughout. I mean, once you go through two-a-days, that's just something you can't explain it.
Yeah.
You don't know when time is going to stop. Coach Holtz will be mad. And let's do it. Let's start over. They'll make you go from period 12 back to period 4, and you got to go. Yeah. So I have people that say, "Oh, Griggs, I remember you," and I'm like, "Oh, you're so kind, but you're so lying."
Yeah.
I wasn't even a scout team All-American. I was on a scout team. So
yeah.
So that's something I actually share with you. I was a walk-on myself. I walked on in '97. So I was a recruited walk-on. So I was playing against somebody that was getting recruited for Notre Dame the year afterward. And the recruiting coordinator came to me and asked me, once he found out that I got accepted, if I wanted to play. So as soon as I got to campus, stopped to the stadium, picked up my stuff, and, that was there ever since. And
there it is.
Fortunately, the grades were the thing that kicked it for me. It was tough battling both, and I just couldn't make it. But like you said, once on the team, always on the team, and I still keep those relationships.
And the tough thing that people don't understand, especially – so I didn't play football in high school. I was a basketball player, but I was fast and I could jump and didn't mind mixing it up. But your offensive playbook is this thick.
Yeah.
Your organic chemistry book is this thick.
Yeah.
If you don't study this, you might flunk a test.
Yeah.
If you miss your block on here, you get your head knocked off.
Yeah.
And they tell you to run it again.
Yeah.
So you can imagine what you spend more time doing.
Oh, yeah. And the guys that were in your era, oh, my goodness.
Oh, dude.
Yeah, that's a whole other time.
Did a crackback one time as a scout player in practice, and coach said, "Run it again." Stoney didn't even he didn't even look the other way. He was like, "Come on."
Yeah. Wow. God bless you.
Yeah, right.
God bless you.
But again, the bond, it's not just, it's a bond altogether. The bond from, again, the locker room. Once we're in the locker room, you're always in the locker room. And I mean, Irv Smith, my second. Irv got drafted to the Saints second year med school, and that just changed everything. And then Aaron Taylor was playing for Green Bay, and they played the Super Bowl in New Orleans. So, I mean, I had a very different med school experience than most. I had a very Notre Dame med school experience.
Cool.
Let's just say I didn't have titles then.
Yeah.
Nice. That's the second time Aaron Taylor's gotten mentioned so far on our first couple shows. We had Malik Zaire on, and Aaron was pretty influential, I think, in a lot of Malik's commenting career, and him in now getting set up, kind of doing some commenting or commentating, I guess I should say.
Yeah.
The funny thing is, the bond at Notre Dame. So Frank Pisano was one of the dean of admissions at Tulane. So when I came down here to do my interview, I bombed my first interview. When I tell you I bombed it, I was so nervous. I was an English major, and she was asking me books like something random, like who wrote 1984? And I'm like,
George Orwell.
Horrible. I go into my second interview, and Dr. Pisano was like, Griggsy. I'm like, how do you know that name? Notre Dame, Winston-Salem, North Carolina, you're a walk-on. I'm like, who are you? Notre Dame alum, knows me. He said, look, don't make me look bad. Can you do this? I got your grades. I got your stuff. Can you do this? And then I got to be careful with the story, but let's just say he was my last interview, and we enjoyed our trip. And then I ended up getting in Tulane Med School, and the rest is I've been here for 28 years.
That's awesome.
28 years, yeah.
And you have 2 radio shows, and you're a regular on Fox?
So I do Fox 8. I've been doing that for going on 7 years now. I was on once a week and increased to twice a week, just doing health updates. I'm a community medicine doctor. People are like, okay, what's community medicine? It's 3 Ps. It's people, it's practice, and it's policy. But mostly it's health literacy. And there's not more of a time than right now. I mean, there has never been a time like right now, where it's most important for everyone to understand what it is we're trying to say. We want you to stay in your house. We want you to stay 6 feet away from each other. Oh, that's fine. But in order for me to do that, you have to tell me why and respect me enough to explain it to me in a way that I can understand so I can help you. Oh, social distancing. You mean the studies show that the virus travels on spit for 6 feet and you've measured it? Oh, well, I don't want to make anybody sick. So, oh, okay. Oh, you want me to stay in the house because there's no immunity? We don't have a vaccine or a treatment? Okay, well, I'll stay in the house. But you have to explain. Healthcare had evolved to this thing, and we all know that. Back when I was in med school, we would get an hour to 45 minutes, especially as students with a patient. The average doctor visit before this COVID-19 thing was about 12 minutes. And you might go once or twice a year, meaning that you'll get half hour to an hour most for the entire year to know what's going on with your body. And they give you long words like hypercholesterolemia, hypertension, diabetes mellitus type 2. Do you know what that is? And all of us want to be respectful of the doctor and like, yeah, do you know what that is? You want me to stick my finger? You want me to lose weight and not eat too much sugar? Is that it? Yeah, sure. So I lived in that lane explaining things, and this hit, and this is a nightmare. I mean, this is truly a nightmare. Public health emergency, a STEM disaster, a health literacy disaster. Mm-hmm. So I had television this morning, had a radio interview at 11:30, had a Zoom live that we do every day at 4, had another Zoom meeting for a church, had a work meeting up until 9, and then 9, 10 our time, and then now I'm talking to you guys. So this is, I mean, it's kind of par for the course, but it's the work that's needed to do in order to get everybody on the same page. We have different levels of denial that everyone's in. Like, people don't understand how serious it is until it knocks on their door, and it's going to knock at different times. Like part of the, and I'm not going to go too speechy or lectury. Only 5% of our population right now has been affected by the virus. Infected, someone they know, 5%, which means that 95% of us are still vulnerable. And 25 to 50% of the general population of people that are positive for the virus are asymptomatic. Yeah. Which means that we're walking around shedding and not even knowing it. And just today, last night and today, it came out that the first patient in the United States wasn't in March. It was a month earlier on February 6th in Santa Clara, California.
That's what I heard too.
So this virus has been spreading for at least a month before. Yep. There's a multiplier that came ironically out of Santa Clara that they did on their own around Stanford. And they found that the infectivity, rather the multiplier, instead of, we were saying 19, and I was telling my colleague who's infectious disease, hey man, stop scaring people. The multiplier is anywhere between 50 and 85. For every one person that you hear that is positive, multiply the actual number to be 50 to 85. Then they did a larger study in Los Angeles, and they came up with the same number. They said the multiplier would be 50, and that's just in those studies. So the difference and the problem with this virus is that typically when you have a virus like measles, it's really contagious. It's infective. Infected viruses don't live outside of you. Viruses don't spread viruses. People spread viruses, right? Right. The way they win, they don't have minds, but if they could, if they went to Michigan and they were bad guys, or US, my wife went to US, let me pass them.
Quarantine in the Ann Arbor.
Right. Let me hate on ST while my wife is upstairs asleep. But the infectivity, the more infective a virus is, typically it's not that lethal. You have a lot of people, older people like our parents' age, that had the measles. They had these things because it was really contagious. This virus is the perfect bad storm in that it's infective and it's extremely lethal. You have people, and then you have people that the incubation period is 2 to 14 days. On average, it's 5. On day 14, people start feeling better, but there's this thing in the immune system called a cytokine storm, where your immune system just goes nuts. It just starts attacking everything. Right. So the moment you start feeling better, you could crash. And I I think that's what happened to my roommate at Notre Dame. Dr. Bryant King lived in Grace Hall with me, literally. We lived in Grace for 4 years. He's a nephrologist now in Indianapolis, and we talk pretty much at least twice a week, not every day since this was going on. He felt a little bad, was talking about it, got his appetite back, wasn't worried about it. 2 days later, I talked to him on a Saturday. I get a text from a buddy of mine, Fred Tombar, who's the reason I went to Notre Dame, and Brian went to Notre Dame. I go to the station, I go for a run, and I get a call first. I can't understand him. He sends me a text saying, "Hey, have you heard about King?" Like, what are you talking about, King? King what? What King? King what? What? Bryant King. I'm like, my Bryant King? No, what are you talking about? He was in the hospital. His O2 sats had fallen off the curb, and they went from the 90s to the 80s. So he was in the hospital for a week, and not knowing. He said it felt like somebody punched him in the stomach and put a vacuum in his mouth all at the same time.
Wow.
So, and the more you hear about it, and the more he described it, and the longer we wait, and I look at the studies and the literature coming out, it's not typical, but it's not uncommon for that to happen with the cytokine storm. Just when you think you're doing better, you push too hard and you crash. And if you wait too late, you can end up in the hospital or worse, on a ventilator. And the sad thing, the numbers with the ventilator, for every 10 people that go on a ventilator right now, only 2 survive.
Wow.
Yeah, that is fascinating. The fact that it spread so fast mean that the lethality is not as bad as we first thought it was, or are you still concerned about that?
So the answer for any doctor that you trust right now is we don't know. The fact that it is diluted, and the fact that we're finding out the multiplies higher can decrease the mortality. That means it can be less lethal, but we still don't know if there's a reinfection, if we don't know the rate of cytokine storm. I mean, for the most part, there's about 10% of the people that won't mount a antibody response once they have it, right? And the rest, hopefully we will. But the problem is we don't know, is the virus going to hide to come back out like cold sores and like with chickenpox and varicella? We don't. Is it gonna mutate again to get stronger? Right. And the big problem that we're running into on this side of it, on the science side, the front of it, is that everything that I get to see, y'all get to see at the same time. Right. Usually there's a filter to know what's true and what's not, and it doesn't scare the heck out of you when you hear it. Wait, somebody died. Okay, wait, that was one person. It wasn't an actual person. It was actually a lab rat, a mouse, and the mouse got loose, and the lady was afraid, and she fell and hit her head, and they called her. The name of the rat was COVID, and so it's hard to. You have to pick out the myth, and the reason the myth and the misinformation and disinformation is dangerous is because it influences policy. If all of us believe that the sky is red, even though it's showing to be blue, but all of us believe it, we're not going to pay attention to someone that says don't go outside when the sky is blue if we believe it to be red. So deciphering the myth from facts is the tough part. But so the answer to your question is yes, but.
Okay.
Now that cytokine storm thing is fascinating. I never heard of that before. I'm sure all you guys have. I mean, Maddie and Trevor.
Yeah, I was going to ask.
But is that something that somebody actually catalyzes themselves, like by working out, or by, you said, by pushing themselves?
It's not a catalytic thing. It's just an overreaction of your immune system. Like it's not the same, and I don't want you to do an apples to apples comparison. So I'm only using this for like just not even an analysis, but like a metaphoric, and so you can understand. I have seafood allergies, right? Mm-hmm. So my body overreacts to something that would not be a problem to you. Mm-hmm. My immune system kicks in. Oh, what is this? And just the whole concept of allergies. And this is not an allergic response. It's just a trigger that goes off, and it's not necessarily related to working out. It's not necessarily related to anything. It's more of a genetic thing that happens. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think when you were describing that story with was it Dr. Neal, that you were saying that he had known he had it and then it kicked in. Now, do you have people? We know how a lot of people, like you were saying, are asymptomatic carriers for maybe the whole time they've even had it. But
Right.
would you potentially also go from an asymptomatic phase to the storm? I'm blanking on the first name of it.
Well, here's the thing about that. So let's talk about that for a minute. So another problem that we're seeing is that it's producing what's called, it's not an altitude sickness, but it's causing the red blood cells to dump O2. So normally right now we breathe on 21% oxygen. You're just breathing air. Only 21% is oxygen, right? And based on that 21%, without supplementation, we're able to saturate 100% of our blood.
I'm in Los Angeles, so it might be the teens over here. I'm not sure.
Well, no.
I'm just kidding.
It's looking a lot different now. There's no
It's
cars.
actually, it's been amazing. Yeah, exactly.
But we're able to saturate about 94 to 100% of our blood. And I have one. I have two. Well, I have one here. I have a pulse oximeter, and that's what we're recommending everyone get. If you go on, I've been told not to say specific places, but I'm gonna say it. I got this on Amazon for like $29 or $30. And it tells you the amount of saturation of oxygen in your blood as well as your pulse. Pulse oximeter. But what happens is what these are anecdotal or observational studies that are coming out, papers that are coming out. They're saying that they're noticing that you have patients. This one guy describes a patient that he had to get off his cell phone so he could intubate him. Think about that. You're seeing patients that are presenting with ridiculously low oxygen O2 sats that don't have any, they're not having difficulty breathing. What's happening is it's insidious. There's a slow dumping of oxygen that you don't notice, especially if you're not working out, but you compensate by breathing deeper and faster. And you don't realize there's a problem, much like my friend, my roommate, until one day he got up to go like to the bathroom or to the front door, and he was like, I can't breathe. Then you end up at the ER with the O2 set in the high 80s or the low 90s, and you don't even realize it because it happens so slow. And again, it's not a direct analogy, but it's just a comparison because I'm careful about that. Like people with altitude sickness, when there's not enough oxygen, the difference is that it's a totally different mechanism, and that you can treat oxygen sickness, the high altitude sickness, by giving oxygen supplementation. This is a viral pneumonia that this virus is causing, and just giving oxygen doesn't cure or solve the problem.
So is it that their lungs are filling up with fluid and there's not like enough surface area anymore, or it's like
Absolutely.
carbon monoxide bonds to your hemoglobin and doesn't?
It's not even the carbon dioxide. The lungs are filling up with fluid and they're affecting the alveoli. It's causing a viral pneumonia. You have your trachea that branch down into your bronchi, two main tubes. They get smaller and they turn into bronchioles. And if you can imagine at the tips of my finger, you have the alveoli, right? Yeah. And they're ridiculously thin. They allow for the oxygen exchange, the oxygen to be exchanged from the air to the blood. Well, they get full. If you can imagine a little water balloon
just filling up, like
getting filled up, and it goes from the consistency of like a saran wrap, like a normal lung that you breathe with. It fills with fluid and it turns into the consistency of what's been described as a stale marshmallow that you're trying to breathe with. To get oxygen, it has this fluid full of pus that's in it, like a wet, stinky balloon that you're trying to get oxygen in, which is why a lot of people have to get an endotracheal tube and a ventilator put in to help them breathe, and you have to do a careful dance between pressure and O2 sat without damaging the tissue. So and it takes a lot of resources to run a ventilator. So I've talked about it before. I'm going to talk to more people about it. Ventilators aren't like tires on your car. These are serious machinery that require a lot of work, and they are literally life support.
Wow.
And now, how are you guys with ventilators? Do you guys have enough, or are you guys? Because that's a lot of the issues that I've seen is just people running low on inventory.
So from the initial projections, we were afraid that we would be overrun. And I think because we were really well prepared for a lot, I think we're okay on ventilators right now, which is not a bad thing. That means we're not overrun, but it also means that we have enough in case people need this crucial life support. Let me go again, give you the percentages. 80% of the people will have a mild case of this COVID-19. It's SARS. COVID-19 it's severe acute respiratory syndrome, coronavirus 2. SARS-CoV-1 was SARS. And then that's the one that they were referring to years ago. And that one miraculously, I don't know, it really disappeared. This one is called SARS-CoV-2. The reason we call it COVID-19 because it's easier to say.
2019.
COVID, yeah. Co is the corona virus, vid, and the disease, coronavirus disease, 2019. So you end up with the pneumonia. 80% of the people will be, if you can imagine the worst flu you've ever had in your entire life, like the worst flu, respiratory illness you've ever had in your entire life and not gone to the hospital, that's considered a mild case.
Wow.
Think about that. That's a mild case. Anything where you didn't have to go be hospitalized and require supplemental oxygenation is a mild case. A moderate case is when you're in the hospital and you have to have, like my roommate, he had to have supplemental oxygenation. Anything short of getting those masks, there's all kind of other therapies that you can have. You can be in the hospital. I've heard for up to 10 days, 2 weeks, even further. But as long as you don't end up on the ventilator, you're in another 15%. Now, we've covered 95% of the people that get infected, right? For the other 5%, unfortunately, their oxygenation gets so low and their ability to oxygenate that they have to go on the ventilator. And that's where the numbers get bad, where only 20% are coming off of that. 20% of that 5% are surviving. So the good news about all that is that 98% of us will survive, that get infected can go all the way in and come all the way out. The bad news is, and this is the part where you get into the conversation with people that don't do people and they just do numbers and they just talk science. Those numbers that we're counting, we're talking about flattening the curve and the number of deaths. For every number you see, there's a person and a family attached to that.
Right? Yeah.
Absolutely. And I've lost 4 or 5 people now, 5 people. And when it hit my roommate, I mean, I've been knowing this guy since I was 17, 18 years old. Like, well, I have to go on TV and act like everything is fine and calm down. And I'm worried sick. I literally broke down and cried on the floor for like a half hour. It would come to me all day. I mean, I was just depressed because you don't want to lose someone you know, especially if we're just talking and something happens to one of y'all and I'm like, wait, I just talked to them. What are you talking?
It's surreal. It really is.
So putting the people with it is the sense of urgency. And when you think about the people on the front lines, like your healthcare provider, and again, Trevor, thank you for that.
No problem.
It's not just them though. We got our healthcare providers, but think about this. All your essential services that you're able to go out and do, the people that work at the grocery stores, your pharmacists, the people that drive the buses, the subways, the cooks, the people that aren't in healthcare, but they're essential. They need to be protected. We need to educate them. The biggest weapon, of course, is staying home. We know that from the pandemic of 1918. It's misnamed. Spain got a bad rap because it didn't start there. But anyway, that's a whole other history lesson.
Yeah, I know.
The thing that we know is to stay home and then to educate people as to why, because the more we're able to stay home, the more lives we're able to save.
Right.
And kind of the segue off of that, we've noticed and seen a larger influx of deaths in the African American community and minority communities. What do you attribute to be the reason that, that is the case? And we had another doctor on the show, former classmate of ours and also in the same dorm. And, he had attributed it to, just general issues, diabetes, just health issues that, you know, our communities face. What's your take on that?
So the first thing I want to do is lay the platform. In doing community medicine, I also do public health. We have to really, we really have to look at the system to begin with. The social determinants of health, that's a term that everyone uses. No one knows what it means. It's your community. Everything that you are is shaped by the safety of your neighborhood, your access to healthy foods. When I say safety, you can't exercise if it's not safe outside. Your education, the community and people around you. Social determinants of health, access to healthcare, mistrust of the healthcare system. Historically, in the African American community, we haven't trusted the system because of the Tuskegee experiment. You have to put it out there, where we were experimented on and didn't even realize it. And then when you take that distrust, you take no access to food, you're gonna have higher risk. You're not gonna take your health as seriously. And if historically your family has died early, and African American men still die much earlier than any other subgroup or demographic.
Heart disease, diabetes, yeah.
All of it. So if your dad died at 65 and you make it to 66, it's a win. And he never went to the doctor, so I'm not going to the doctor. So there's a lot of generational things, and there's a lot of historic things that need to be addressed. But before we can get that, we need to live to have the conversation. So that's when I turn, and you never blame victims, because here's the thing. They're not projecting that African Americans are the most affected group in Louisiana. They're counting bodies. They're going to the morgue and they're counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 7 out of those bodies are African American. You can't, it's an irrefutable fact that that's the case. If that's the case, and you know that a disease, a virus, seems to have put a target on your back, you need to ask yourself first, I do want to talk about, and we're going to have a talk about health disparities and fixing the system, but have I taken my blood pressure medication? I tell people to get checked, get fit, get moving. When was the last time I went to get a checkup? Do I know all of my health history? Do I know, and this is something that people aren't bringing up, and one of my colleagues, Dr. Aber, brought it up, do I know my sickle cell status? Having sickle cell trait makes you vulnerable for this disease. If you're not able to unload your oxygen, the virus is going to exploit that, use it to its advantage, and you're going to be one of the most vulnerable groups, just like smoking, just like asthma. You can know your sickle cell status by calling a hospital. It's something that it's not hidden information. Do I smoke? Am I diabetic? And am I taking my medication? Am I doing everything I can to decrease the likelihood that I will be a target specifically? Am I overweight? Am I fat? Being overweight, people don't talk about what it means, obesity. How does it affect, why is that a risk factor? Okay, yeah, we'll talk about the diabetes and the hypertension and the diseases that come with it, the comorbid conditions, but let's talk about just the anatomy of it. If you have a beer gut and your chest cavity is compressed vertically because of your gut, the amount of fat, you can't oxygenate. There's less lung available to ventilate. It's that simple. So go ahead.
Oh no, so like in terms of like your posture and your ability to like open up your chest kind of thing. So
No, it's not even just your posture. It's your ability to actually oxygenate. There's less tissue. You know the guys, you've seen guys with you've seen people with the large bellies. There's just not enough room for your lungs to expand.
Oh man.
I'm always fighting against that. That's I got to work really hard against expanding my lungs.
But his wife's a good cook, so you were just talking about that.
We were talking about at the beginning of the show how I feel like I've put on the COVID-19.
Yeah. Oh man, so there is the COVID. There's at least the COVID-15. I like that. The COVID. Have you put on the COVID? We need to walk it off. The thing is,
terrible in light of such horrible, serious stuff we're talking about. I apologize.
No, but you have to make light of it. I mean,
of course.
I was watching a Fred Sanford clip about Lamont when he had TB and Fred having on a mask. Maybe I'll share it so y'all can. It's hilarious. Fred sat at the table and put out different sets of silverware, and he put F's on all of his forks and knives. and he put C's on Lamont. He said, "What is that for?" He said, "Contaminated."
We'll have to talk to our editor. Roll that one in the middle.
Roll that in. I'll share it. We have to find the humor in it, and it's a part of Kubler-Ross has the stages of grief, and there's a cultural analogous cultural adjustment that we need to make. I have in my PowerPoint presentation, I have a slide that shows it, and it mirrors as a culture and a community the stages of grief. There's the denial, there's hostility, there's humor, there's acceptance, and it takes a while. It takes 8 to 9 months to get there. And what it's based on, one of my friends and colleagues has been running an immersion program in the Dominican Republic for the last 18 years. So she teaches that to her students to show her that, this is going to be different than anything you've seen. And if you think about the analogy to the Kubler-Ross stages of grief and dying, we're all grieving the lives we once knew. There was no spring game. I mean, no spring game.
Yeah.
And there probably won't be a season. Like that's not normal. Like not being able to hug your grandmother, having to be distant from people that you really care about. We're social creatures. So it's kind of a death and a grieving of the lives we once knew, because for the foreseeable future, at least until, and you heard it here first, at least until 2022, this is going to be a part of our normal, our COVID-19, COVID-20, COVID, whatever you want to call it. There's going to be social distancing and experiments in releasing too soon and coming back in. That's going to happen. So we just have to get used to it.
I wanted to ask you about that specifically, especially in light of, talking about the disproportionate numbers between communities, or the deaths between communities. What do you think about some of these states that are already trying to experiment with opening up? We've got Georgia about to start an experiment. I think South Carolina, Tennessee, and Florida have all had different ideas about doing it. And it seems to be communities that are affected by some of these disproportionate numbers, potentially more heavy than other states too. So there's almost a double-edged sword going on with the game they're playing.
It's kind of a double hit, and I think it's absolutely too soon. It's entirely too soon. The numbers don't make sense. You're seeing it at the federal level. You're seeing, my TV stays on this all day, and they were talking about how it's way too soon. I actually, believe it or not, the White House's plan for the phases of reopening is brilliant, and you can tell it was done by people in public health. You have to follow. This is a science disaster, so you have to follow science in order to address it. There's no other way around.
Ding, ding,
To be quite honest, you want to know, if you really want to know the honest truth about when it's safe to go out, it's not going to be safe to go out and do anything in public until we have a vaccine.
Right.
That's it. Until we have a vaccine. Think about this. You won't send your kids to school. They won't accept your kids in school. They won't accept you at Notre Dame unless your shot record is up to date.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There is no shot to give.
No.
Right. And it sounds like you were talking about the antibody testing is still a very unknown. And if it's something like a cold sore, like you were mentioning, I mean, how long would that even take to figure out if that's the case? You wouldn't even know for another, I mean, I don't know. How long would it take to even know if it's something that's recurring or not?
Now the thing, we won't know. I mean, and the thing is, the virus didn't go to Notre Dame. The virus doesn't read books.
Yeah.
It's going to do what it needs to do.
Right.
However it can do all. And here's the other thing. This is a great point brought up earlier in a discussion I was having earlier. The virus's goal isn't necessarily to kill you as a virus, if the virus could think. The virus just wants to infect and live in as many people as possible. Now, it does the virus no good to kill you because it's not there. It can't keep replicating. The longer it's living, and the virus can't live without you. Remember, the virus is just a ball of genetic material wrapped in some protein and some fat. It has to get inside you somehow, and you don't get it by eating a bat, in spite of what you heard. Got to an hour-long discussion / argument with someone like, oh, well, you get it from eating the lungs of, no, you don't get it from eating lungs. It was The virus was contracted at a wet market. Animals get viruses all the time, every year. That's how we know with swine flu, bird flu, the whole nine. Animals sneeze, mammals sneeze and cough. And when they're in close proximity to each other, the virus spreads. Well, this thing of husbandry and the people that prepare our food, as they interact with the animals without PPE, I bet you none of y'all really cared what PPE was before this, huh?
Yeah.
Because they don't have proper PPE, gloves and masks.
No.
They're breathing the same air. They're touching the animal, touching their face, and the virus replicates. Oh, I can get in him too.
Yeah.
And it did. And it was successful. So that's how it happened. Breathing the same air or touching the respiratory virus and getting in. Not from eating a pig.
Or like aerosolized blood, I heard too.
What's that?
So aerosolized blood at that wet market was one thing I heard another doctor talking about. Dr. Agus.
Yeah, there's aerosolized blood, but this is a respiratory virus. This virus goes in, it's a respiratory thing, and it's through breathing it in, getting particularly in the back of your nose, which is why they want to do the swab.
Yeah.
I mean, there's been so much. This virus just caught us. It's like, I don't know if you've ever had your mom or grandma, someone come over to the house unexpectedly, and she had to throw everything together. It was always your room, and she threw everything in to make the rest of the house look nice. That's basically what happened. This virus just caught us. We're like, wait, stop, wait a minute. Now we're trying to pick up the pieces, and we just don't want to lose any more lives. This has been my existence for about 19 hours a day, 20 hours a day. I do this. So just stop me at any time.
No, I said before we started this, like, you're so busy, we don't want to keep you. And meanwhile, I could talk to you all night long. This is, I have a million questions I could ask, and we will definitely try to wrap it up. Before we wrap it up, I want to make sure we go back to having a little more fun about Notre Dame. Oh, but before that, even before getting into a little Notre Dame and basketball talk, which I really don't want to leave without talking about some basketball, because I know you have a league that goes on that I bet you read about down in the community, or that I'm really interested in. But I also want to talk about, make sure we're driving the audience to maybe to go support you or to support the causes there locally. Do you have a website or a certain place that we could send people to go to find you?
Yeah, so
donate.
I work closely with a group called STEM NOLA.
It's just so cool to build something on your own.
I love STEM NOLA because it's a hands-on activity that's fun and educational, and you get to make new friends.
Growing future innovators, creators, and makers for the 21st century. STEM NOLA. Visit STEMNOLA.com.
STEM NOLA. It's science, technology, engineering, and math. And it started in New Orleans by a friend of mine, Dr. Calvin Mackey. Been working with him for like 4, 5, 6 years. And before this, what we would do is we would take STEM and bring it to the community. And it's particularly ones that were low income, that wouldn't have opportunity to do this. We bring the kids in, and across the country, we'd engaged over 60,000 kids across the country, right where they were.
Cool.
And what I love about the program is that if you receive free or reduced lunch, which is over 85% of the students, the program was free. And if you didn't, it was only $60. But you're getting a kit. Every kid would go home. We'd start with a lesson. Like I'm still the life sciences director. So, and I bring the kids on TV with me, and they talk about the hearts and the lungs. And
nice.
The thing is, you know that you want to be the way that you know what you want to be. All of us is we saw somebody else doing it and thought like, wow, that's really cool. And then we had an experience that confirmed it. And the earlier you start, the more likely it is to stick. Does that make sense? Yeah. So if I put a sheep heart in a 3 or 4 year old's hand and explain to him right atrium, right ventricle, left atrium, left ventricle, this is the heart, and they see that they can be a doctor, and we start giving them the words and the concepts. Did y'all ever notice that none of the concepts changed all those years? Whatever you learned in elementary school, junior high school, all the way to college, grad school, it was the same stuff, just more detailed, and you wish that you'd have gotten it earlier, so you wouldn't have had to waste your time learning the basics. Well, that's the premise of this program. It's a vertical learning thing, and it's something that's dear to my heart because I love kids. Cool. I mean, and I like to teach, obviously. Yeah. And I like to run my mouth, and talk sports and talk Notre Dame, of course. But it's really dear to my heart because we can't get together right now. We can't congregate. I mean, this is 200 to 400 kids at a rip, plus their families, with like 40 different stations set up, and all the way from we just started a preschool program all the way to high school. I mean, the program's not going anywhere. Dr. Mackey is working to evolve it to a video format, but right now, you know, the public health and healthcare are the key, but I don't want them to be forgotten because we still got our kids, and you know, we're Irish. We love our kids, right?
Yeah.
So it's stemnola.org. Trevor has been really helpful with helping New Orleans East Hospital. It's a hospital. Now, this is what people don't get. As things open up, I talked to Dr. Davis, and she's, oh my God, she's over the top grateful. I mean, that's just, she couldn't believe it. I'm like, yeah, let me show you my ND family. This is what we do. And I'll put you in contact with them, and then I'm out. Yeah. I mean, because it's not about me. I want this done. But she expressed to me that when they open up for elective surgeries, their need for PPE, the protective equipment, is going to triple. Because they're still going to see their COVID patients, but they're going to be doing surgeries. So they're going to have to protect everyone involved, including the patients. Like none of this is small. Any small contributions help, but none of these decisions have small implications. Like everything is just like, when they talk about social determinants of health and connectivity, this is it. But this was inevitable. From the ID world, they said that we were due for another pandemic. They all thought it was going to be the flu, and it's this. Yeah. From a healthcare perspective, a public health perspective, the fact that we have no idea what doctors are talking about except to go on Google and try to figure it out ourselves, to take care of ourselves. It was inevitable that the healthcare system was going to have to be restarted. The button was going to have to be pushed to restart it, to pull everyone in, to make it a true community effort, to hold everyone else accountable, including our healthcare providers and our neighbors next door. So, you know, we always, you know, at Notre Dame, of course, even if we have a bad season, you better watch out for us next year because we're going to win the national championship. That's what we're going to turn this into.
Agreed. Agreed. And we're hoping with this, we use this platform, we get it out to folks across the U.S. And, you know, we get people from different areas who want to get involved, have the ability to hear the story that you're sharing and have the ability to help out if they can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you so much for that. Like I said, Access Health Louisiana is that I work for a federally qualified FQHC, federally qualified health center. We take all insurances. If you can't afford to pay for it, we take care of it. We have 36 clinics across the state. We have 47,000 patients that we take care of. We've converted 85 to 90%. We're telemedicine now, which is absolutely cool. It's the dopest. It's the dopest thing on the planet, man. But we're at FQHC. New Orleans East Hospital works in an underserved area of the city. It's part of a larger system, but even if you can't help us, if you can do anything to help your healthcare providers and your first responders, I'm not selfish. I just want people to survive and thrive. That makes sense? And STEMNOLA, of course, it's about our kids. www.stemnola.org.
Yeah, we'll make sure we flash those URLs up during the show when this thing finally goes on the website, and we'll add links, and if we can, we'll make them clickable, and we'll do our best to kind of try to drive some traffic that way. And like you said, if not, make sure people do some stuff and, you know, support their local health community as well.
Yeah, anybody that's looking for information, you know my pages. Trevor, you know my pages. I've got all my pages, the LinkedIn, I'm Doc Griggs. I have a website, www.docgriggs.com. My hashtag, I tell people to get checked, get fit, get moving. Go to the doctor. Know your status, check for signs and symptoms of dry cough, fever, shortness of breath. Got to throw that in there. Get fit is healthy eating and food, and then get moving. And I really want people to work on getting into shape. Get checked, get fit, get moving, because the fall is coming. And a really sobering lecture that we gave earlier is the fact that when fall comes around, everyone's worried about the mutation of COVID-19, and that's one thing. But the real issue is that it's going to be flu season and potentially COVID-19 season. And how are you going to tease the symptoms apart? And most importantly, how are you going to deal with the two together? So if you know that you have underlying conditions, I'm down to 186. I was in college, I was 167, 175. I'm trying to get to my college size.
Nice.
Getting store shape again, even though we can't play. I mean, it is what it is. But now's the time to get as healthy as you possibly can. You know what you should do. Any help that you need from me, I'm here. Again, I post a lot of stuff. I post a lot because I need to put information out. So anything I can do, just let me know.
Great.
And we'll share everything. You know,
yeah, we hope to become kind of a beacon for that too as well, and hopefully be able to pay back some of that, reciprocate some of the love that you're giving to the show.
I appreciate it, man. Trevor, I really appreciate the locker room and being part of the locker room and reaching out, because it's what it's about. This is what we do. This is why we are Irish. We win.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I'm telling you.
Can I ask you for one more story before we go? I want to talk basketball. So you mentioned bookstore basketball. I'm a huge basketball fan. I'm trying to think back. You had some great Notre Dame basketball players there when you were there as well, right? I mean, you had LaFonso Ellis. You had Coach Monty Williams. Right? You had who else? I mean, there's some other names I think that were.
We had Tim Singleton, LaFonso Ellis. Yeah. We had Damon Sweet, Elmer Bennett, Keith Tower, Paintsville. Nice. Keith last. He was a shooter out of Paintsville, Kentucky. I mean, we had real Joe Frederick, Jameer Jackson, Kevin Ellery, Keith Robinson. We had ballers. Like, if I'm leaving anybody out, I apologize, man. It's woo, you just knocked some cobwebs off. I'm right
here with you.
You were one of the original Notre Dame dual sport athletes then, I would say. Huh?
Yeah, I hooped a little bit back in my day.
Nice.
And could catch a ball or two. But the thing is, at Notre Dame, that's the thing. So my buddy Jonathan Walsh, he's actually my attorney, my buddy, we just talk about it. Like, there was nothing special about anybody because all of us were, I mean, you had full contact intramural sport, football. Are you kidding me? You had bookstore basketball with professional athletes coming back to play and like really play hard, outdoors, all weather, no excuses, just to play. I mean, you know how much I miss that, like, and how foreign it is to other people. They just can't get it. I mean,
1,500 plus teams. I mean, like,
are you kidding? Like, and it's a thing. And it will be a thing again. We shall rise again.
Any bookstore games come to mind?
Derek Johnson used to play on. I mean, there were these legendary intramural teams that, I mean, there's just stories. Dorsey Levens was still at Notre Dame when I was there. I'll never forget some of the dunks Dorsey did is just it's Vince Carter-esque, but Dorsey was only 6'2" and built like a truck.
Brick.
Oh, well, we appreciate it. Thank you so much. Trevor, you got an over-under for us this week?
Over-under. So I'm a little partial because I know you're in New Orleans. I was going to bring up gumbo, but obviously with the seafood allergy, we're going to have to switch it off.
We've been making this kind of joke about, based on the hoarding of supplies that go on, and we've been asking everybody an over-under about some kind of silly supply or whatever. So Trevor's usually coming up with something to quiz the people on.
So we're going to switch up the over-under. No seafood, but rolls of bread. How many rolls of bread do you have in your house right now, either frozen or fresh, stocked, ready to roll?
I have 3. I have 2 down here, and maybe 1 or 2 upstairs. Yeah.
There you go. I like
nice.
it.
Now, if you just said toilet paper, that's a whole nother. I have no idea. I still have no idea what.
Trevor, you caught the seafood allergy, but I didn't hear the over/under number there though.
Yeah, it was all in here. It was all in here.
That was a good one. That's a good one.
Did you win the bet against yourself?
I have three rolls of bread and
Whoa, that's amazing.
We owe money now. Oh man, my wife recently shot a movie down. She worked on a movie One Night in Miami that Regina King filmed down in New Orleans for.
Oh, really?
And man, we ate. This is where my COVID-19 came from, because I've been working out. I've been staying active. I've just been eating through it like crazy.
Man.
Started with the po' boys and all that, the shrimp and grits and all that good food down there. I don't know how you could get in good shape down there, man. It's good food on everything.
Yeah, so that part of it is with the stress of not eating. Like you lose your appetite.
Yeah.
But I put on 50 pounds since I got here. I was at one point. Let me tell you, when all of this started, I was about 207, 206, 207, and I'm 186 now.
Wow.
But part of my stress release is I run. So I've been running like 8 to 10 to 16 miles a day.
Nice.
Just because I need to think and de-stress. And like, it's hard to describe the emotional impact of losing people and then being responsible for messaging and keeping people calm. And then hearing just scary stuff. If I had hair, I've probably grown an afro. It turned white and fallen off all within a matter of minutes. But it's tough. But the good thing is, though, when I do want to eat, there's always something good. Like
yes.
Well,
everything.
One more question that you made me think of, and you can really help me out with this one. You had mentioned you're going out for runs. I've been mostly walking. I kind of almost like an embarrassing kind of power walk to try to get my heart rate going, but like my knee still like gives up. So I try, like running is just not the most best thing for my body, but I try to do daily walks. Do I need to be rocking a mask on a walk when I'm okay, when I can social distance okay?
The answer is absolutely, but it's tough to do it because you're trying to decrease the amount. So it's funny you bring up masks, right? I feel like Mr. Rogers. So this is an N95 mask.
This is educational.
Mask.
Oh, nice. We got the N95 mask. Very nice.
Yeah.
This is the one that we reserve for healthcare providers. I have, if you give me two, oh, there it is.
My wife's been making these ones.
So that's your cloth mask. That is good. The purpose of the N95 mask is to keep the virus out, to keep it from getting into you, right?
Right.
And that's what we want our healthcare providers. The same thing with the KN95s, Trev.
Yep.
KN95s, we want to try to keep the virus out. Then you have the surgical mask, which is the
blue ones, 3 ribs.
And what's crazy is all these masks are usually disposable. You use them one time on a patient and you throw them away. But because, again, we got company over at the house and your mom threw everything in your room, we had a short supply, which is why we're running into supply issues now.
Right.
But these, this is a face mask. And I'll get into the times that you're really supposed to wear them. And this is your cloth mask, right? Like the one that you pulled up.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the purpose of the face mask and the cloth mask are to keep your viruses in, or your spittle. We spit when we talk. We breathe when we talk. The virus travels on respiratory droplets. Now, to give you an idea of the size of the virus, your hair is the diameter of your hair is about 75 microns, right? This virus in diameter is 0.1 microns. Yeah, I wait for the response. Most people are like,
my eyes were like open wide.
Yeah.
So it stays suspended in the air for a long period of time with that particle size then.
And what we.
I'm sorry. I was an engineer and I'm still a material scientist and used to be. I even spent a couple of summers at Roswell Park Cancer Institute studying. I had to do sterile technique and all that stuff. So I'm into this sciencey kind of stuff. But 0.1 micron. I mean that's so. The water from your spit evaporates away, but these virus particles just they float in the air basically. That's particle size, right?
So what these cloth masks do is they keep your spittle in, and they stop the projection of your spit. And it's anywhere from 50+% less spittle is out when people are wearing this. 50, some people say 100. I don't think anything's ever 100%. But it does. It's been known to decrease the volume of spittle in the air. And the reason that we know that wearing something over your face actually works first of all, these two are supposed to filter out the 0.1 microns from getting in you, but it also stops your spittle from going out. The reason that we know these things work, and the reason we can say social distancing worked, is because back in 1918, they thought it was miasma. If Eric talked to Adam, Trevor, and Matt, somebody would get sick and somebody might die. So it must be bad air outside. So what we're going to do is we're going to cover our face and not breathe in the air, and we're going to stay away from each other, and we're going to go in the house. That's all they had. They didn't even know what a virus was back then. But we know it worked. By not staying away from each other, they didn't know what the flu was, but they knew you got sick. And they know that I don't get sick if I wear something on my face and I stay in the house. So these things actually work. So any opportunity you get to wear a mask, which you're not going to see a bunch of people doing right now because it is uncomfortable, it's unnatural, but it's all part of the new COVID normal, 19 normal that we're going to have to start getting used to, including myself. When I go for runs by myself, I'm usually, it's like 4, 5, 3, 4 in the morning. I'm by myself, so I'm just running. Ideally, and I'm going to have to get to where I wear a mask. And
it's hard. It's hard.
Yeah, it's hard. And then the other thing is,
to wear an N95 mask while you're running. I mean, I felt like I was climbing Mount Everest just walking through the grocery store with an N95 mask on. It's hard. It's hard to breathe through those things, even like without working out.
It's extremely hard to breathe. So it's going to take some adjusting and getting used to. Want to make sure we wash our hands. If you are going to exercise, one of the things that you want to make sure that you do, the studies came out, it's called a slipstream. If you've ever been running or jogging before and ran through someone and you smell, oh, someone just took a shower, oh, they put on this deodorant, you're running through their slipstream. The slipstream is basically their wake of their essence, of their body, of their sweat, of their spit. You're running through somebody's essence.
I was thinking that too. You said,
you know what I'm saying? The distance you want to keep, distances, you want to be 6 feet apart if you're just talking, right? And if you're going to run, you run in parallel. If you're running at an angle, like in someone's wake, you want to stay 10 feet if you're jogging, 33 feet if you're biking. The best thing to do is run in parallel and just try to stay as far apart as possible.
Okay. Well, I'll make sure I put mine on and try to get used to walking up the hill with it, because I'll admit I've been, it gets a little huffy puffy going up the steep hills. So I've been pulling it off and putting it on. I know it's not even good to be touching it. So I know I'm
what's funny is I'm thinking back to you talking about your power walking, like all the stuff that we made fun of when we were in college. Like we never wanted to be the guy coming back to campus wearing the golf pants, the plaid golf pants. But I can't wait to buy a pair. Made fun of the people that were power walking until we get these 40 and 50-year-old knees. And jogging and walking was not exercise, but just keep doing it and just gradually build it up, and we'll be fine. But yeah,
we have to embrace our age.
So true.
Embrace it. I had to embrace full hair. Right?
Oh, that's a beautiful head right there.
Yeah,
I'll be there soon. My wife was pointing out my bald spot.
The three of us, we're in the same boat.
I still have a lot of hair. I don't even know what you're talking about, asshole.
Don't let this long hair fool you. Everybody on my mom's side is bald. If that wives' tale is true, and my wife was pointing out my big bald spot earlier, so I'm getting into comb-over territory.
Yeah. All right.
The funny thing is everyone's complaining about, I don't know what to do with my hair. I'm like, man, no barber, no problem.
I'm jealous.
Straight back.
All right, Doc. Well, we could talk. Like I said, I keep asking more questions. I'm so sorry this has gone so long. I was the one that was like,
no worries.
I was the one who said this couldn't go on so long, and then I'm the one making it go on longer and longer and longer. So I'm an idiot. But thank you so much.
I really appreciate you, Dr. Griggs.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate y'all, man. This is awesome. Go Irish.
Go Irish.